Ink-a-dink, 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 ink-a-dink. Wow. Well, good morning. Welcome to Basil BuddhaCat Presents, and a fine Sunday morning to you. When we left off Friday night, we were discussing the great state of Mississippi. And brief recap, Basil wanted me to note that Mississippi... hold on, that's... Sunday morning oatmeal. So we were discussing the state of Mississippi and how Basil was noting that Mississippi is what he describes as being a welfare state, in the sense that Mississippi for decades has received billions of dollars more per year back from the federal government than Mississippi residents actually pay in income tax into the federal government. So they're amongst the takers in states like New York, and New Jersey, and California. Principally those three. There's a lot of other ones though. There's a lot of givers and a lot of takers in America, and Mississippi ranks amongst. In fact, Basil noted that most of the taker states are in what was once known as the Deep South. And I guess it's still deep in the underbelly of America, so it's still the Deep South. Okay. So we had a phone call. We were talking about the Mississippi elections, the runoff election in this year. They had a Senate primary in the Republican Party, and there were more than two candidates, and no candidate got 50%, which by Mississippi law precipitates a second round of elections where the top two candidates run off against one another. And everybody expected that the self-described Tea Party member, Chris McDaniel, would probably win over I believe it's six. I'm gonna say either 3 or 4 term incumbent. Now you can check that out for us, and everybody's got their link to the internet, and they're checking it out. And I think it's going to either be 3 or 4 term incumbent Thad Cochran. And in that primary, in the lead up to that primary runoff election, Thad Cochran went to what Chris McDaniel describes as being liberal, Commie, Socialist. We didn't say Pinko because that's the wrong color. Said that Thad Cochran went, and he did in fact go and ask for the help of people that Chris McDaniel describes as liberal, Commie, Socialist, Democratic, blacks, for their help in getting him back on the ballot as the Republican Party candidate. Mississippi allows cross voting in their primary, so long as you don't vote in your own party's primary, and so that's how it came down. And lo and behold, Thad Cochran won by about 6,000 votes in this runoff election, and that set the Yahoos, or was that what they were saying? Okay. That set Chris McDaniel's supporters howling about... well, they didn't howl like that, Lil. didn't howl like that. But they howled about how it was unfair and how even though it was the law in Mississippi, it's there had to be some sort of conniving and collusion going on in order for their candidate to be to not win the election. And on election night, Chris McDaniel did what frequent caller into the show Sarah Palin would have done on election night 2008, and that's why the John McCain party did not have her on the list of invited people, because they knew that she would probably get up on the podium and say something to the effect of, "We was robbed," that, how could that guy, that, as McCain described him during the debates, that one, how could he have beaten us? How could we have not won in the election, even though, of course, the electoral vote was of landslide proportions, and the popular vote was pretty significant in the 2008 election. But anyway, so Chris McDaniel gets up on the podium and basically doesn't concede the election, even though the statistical analysis of the 100% of the returns are absolutely show that he will in fact be the loser in the election. And to this day, he's been contesting it, and they've got all kinds of claims of we've got unrefutable evidence that Thad Cochran that somehow the vote was slanted and the election was stolen away from McDaniel. Anyway, so we had a caller in that we didn't get a chance to talk to at length. Friday night, 10 p.m. Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Keep that in mind. We had a caller in who Tweety. Did you? Yeah, Tweety did the checking of the. We get a bunch of zeros and ones on calls from the hereafter, and we actually call out to the hereafter by a device which Bill Murray, who has been in the audience for about 6 months since we did the Basilathon, our telethon to raise money for the Stephen T. Colbert Defense Fund, and in fact ended up getting him the gig on the Late Show, taking David Letterman's place. So that turned out to be a pretty good deal for Colbert, huh? So we got a call in from former Senator John Stennis from Mississippi, and Senator Stennis was one in a long line of Democrats, and the South was pretty solid in the Democratic Party category, only because the word Republican, which they associated with President Abraham Lincoln and the folks that somehow or other stole slavery away from them. They just were never going to vote Republican, and that went on for about 100 years. If you had a Republic R next to your name, there was no chance that you were going to be elected in any of the southern states. So there you go. And Basil says, says you're going on too long. Cut it short. Okay, I will. So Bill Murray taught us how to conjure up people from the hereafter. He brought us this lovely piano, and we'll see if we can get Senator Stennis back. So now, what dial tone did Senator Stennis use when he called us on Friday night? It wasn't Elsie the cow, obviously. It wasn't the normal ringtone. it wasn't I don't know. We'll take our chances with that. So, Senator Stennis, wherever you are, Tweety, check it out. Let us know. Tweety says, yes, it is in fact. Yep, the zeros and the ones will indicate that it is from the hereafter, and it is from our caller in on Friday night, Senator John Stennis. Now, Basil, there was something about a John Black that floated around. Some notion of John Black. Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay, Senator Stennis. Now we've come to the conclusion that you were senator for. We were pretty sure 47 years, and you represented Mississippi. You retired after 47 years because said he looked in his seat and there he was, and he'd been dead for what did the coroner say, about 13 months. Okay, so there you go. So what's your take on this? Okay, Senator Stennis is telling me that he's not sure. What's his name again? I thought you got your faculties back. I thought a person, when they pass along, get their faculties back in the hereafter. It says, what's the hereafter again? Hereafter what? Okay, well, we'll hold on a moment while you collect your thoughts. Now, what is this about Mississippi? Because you've seen what's been going on since you've been gone. First from your seat in the Senate, and then from the hereafter. What's this about? Why does Mississippi? Why are people in Mississippi so uneducated? You rank about. I think the latest chant is we're number 47. We're number 47. We're number 47. Out of 50 states, and heaven help the 3 states that are behind you. They're obviously we know they're all in the they're all amongst the southern states too, in terms of quality of education. But also that Mississippi receives last year, I believe it was $3 billion more, and it's always in the billions, more in money from the federal government by the kind generosity of the states that actually pay more taxes, more money into the federal government than get back. When you get it back, and so Mississippi's always well, Basil described Mississippi as being a welfare state. But I think the correct term might actually be, the accepted term might be taker state. There are giver states and there are taker states. And there are Quaker states. And speaking of which, not Quaker oats, but It's actually priced right oats, the 5-minute oats rather than the quick oats, because the quick oats are too syrupy, they're too mushy. There's no substance to them. Okay. Senator Senna says he appreciates you mentioning oats. He never was a big fan of grits. I mean, he had to eat them in public, obviously, because that's the morning staple of Mississippi, but he kind of nibble at that and then go on to the oats. What about bananas? You like bananas too? Said, yeah. He said that's says even back then, he knew by simply reading about it. Said he graduated first in his class. He got on his tests. He consistently got straight C's. He says he read about bananas and came to the conclusion that bananas were in fact the best source of potassium. Have you heard about this? It's been going on apparently for about 10 years now, and people have been dabbling in not coconut milk, which is the ground up coconut fiber mixed in with the liquid in the center of the coconut, but with coconut water. And apparently that's been a big deal. But some of the claims they were making about the product, if you could call it a product, it's actually made by nature, and all they do is tap into it and bottle it and sell it, and making a lot of claims about coconut water being good for just about whatever ails you. And come to find out that you have to drink about 2 gallons of coconut water in order to get the amount of potassium that you find in one banana, an average sized banana. So okay, well, I know you called up to talk about the primary election between John Stennis and not John Stennis. That's who you are, but the man that replaced you, Thad Cochran, and Chris McDaniel. Okay. He says he's not sure. He thinks it actually was the other dude that replaced him, but he remembers Thad Cochran. He remembers Thad Cochran as a young lad growing up, and he said he likes him. Says gets a little too close to. I'm not going to say that. No, I'm sorry. We don't say that anymore, Senator Stennis, and I'm not going to quote you. Basil said, "Meow, meow, 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 meow." Basil said he thinks he means blacks. Okay. Well, Basil said it. So you're off the hook and I'm off the hook. Well, you're on the hook because you said it. Basil translated for you. Okay, so at any rate, and by the way, where does this... we spent about, it must have been about 5 minutes on Friday night show spelling the state name, Mississippi. And it's not that it's that long, it's that you have all these fill-in terms, replacement terms for some of the letters, because you got a bunch of S's and a bunch of I's and apparently a little PP in there. So Basil says, "Oh, speaking of that, don't forget to do the ads." Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on, Senator Stennis. We have to do our ads. Tootsie Roll, Basil's favorite candy, and says there is proof of that in his litter box. Okay. Hold on. Stay with us. Paw root beer. Okay. And again, let's see, who makes this? Well, it's made in Plano, Texas. Authority of Dr. Pepper 7-Up Incorporated. Okay. And still got the high fructose corn syrup in it, kid. So, well, Basil says, well, you want to lose another sponsor? Okay, let's go on. Hold on. Okay, here we've got one. Schweppes. Schweppervescence, and contains water, natural flavors. Okay. Also, Plano, Texas, Dr. Pepper, 7-Up Incorporated. So there you go. I guess we're going to endorse both of them, since we're getting some cha-ching because of that. But we'll do Schweppes above and beyond. Okay, let's see. Couple quick more ones. Dermasil from the Dermasil Labs. Now 25% more. That's something. And Basil, we're getting, looks like we've got this skeleton here, and I'm not sure, but I think now that Craig Ferguson is retiring from, not from television, not from acting, but he's retiring from his show at the end of this year. So we're going to we're thinking that maybe we're going to end up being the fortunate ones to get Jeffrey. Are we going to get Secretariat too? Basil says you're going to have to get an awful big Tootsie Roll if you do. Okay. So at any rate, so this election, this runoff primary election, and hello. I think Senator Stennis may be on an extended nap. He says he likes to keep up with his good friend Ronald Reagan, who was noted while President Reagan was in the White House. He would take a couple of naps a day. In fact, he slept about 20 hours of the day, which allowed him to get up and eat and do some acting and practice his lines and use his teleprompter to make an occasional speech. And teleprompters go back to at least as far back as President Jimmy Carter. Technology was there. Presidents made use of it. You know, it's only became a big deal to some people when the teleprompter began to be used by a certain president, liberal, communist, socialist, Marxist, not democratic, but Democrat. What, Basil? And Basil said black. Okay, so we're gonna. Okay, so at any rate, he went to sleep. I mean, we were chatting with him, and that's just how it is. Okay, hold on. Okay, this is Tweety says this is not from the hereafter. We don't have a series of zeros and ones. We have an actual phone number, and the caller identifies himself not by his name, but by one of his classic lines from a certain daytime TV show. Now, do we mention this show by name, or we'll let you have a guess at it first. His classic tagline is John Black. Oh, that's right. Remember, we were supposed to talk to a former senator from Mississippi who was senator for about a year back in the 1830s. He belonged to the Jeffersonian Party, and that's part of the roots of the old Democratic Party that became the Dixiecrats, and then switched over. He couldn't get the endorsement of the Senate It actually was the states themselves, their representatives that voted for members of Congress back then, rather than the electorate. Because, as you recall, there were a lot of people in America didn't vote, not because they chose not to vote, but because they weren't allowed to vote. One of those groups was women, who did not get the vote on a national basis until about 1920, when a constitutional amendment was added which allowed them to vote. Okay, now this is not 1830, but along the way, of course, slaves were not allowed to vote. But later on, it was decided that slaves would be, to a degree, enfranchised as voters, and each slave vote would count for 3/5. It's called the 3/5 compromise. And they didn't use percentages back then, so it wasn't 60% or 0.6. It was the 3/5 compromise. And slaves were allowed 3/5 of a vote each, which was cast by their masters. So I guess that means their masters got a couple extra votes according to how many slaves they had on their the plantations. And a little bit of history for you. So again, the famous quote from our caller in John Black. Okay, if you don't know, it's a character from Days of Our Lives named Stefano DiMera, and if you watch the show, you'll probably still see him on there periodically. We've got plenty of characters that have been there for about 20 years that haven't aged a day, apparently. And a lot of young kids on it. Actually, some of the kids suddenly, from one day to the next, went from being toddlers, played by various actors, went from being 2-3-year-olds to being teenagers. And Philip Kyriakis and the rest of them, they all of a sudden advanced in age and became teenagers. For the teenagers in the audience who kept saying, "How come I'm getting older and they're not?" Okay, so it's are we going to get to any of our? Well, I guess we're going to have to hold off to the next show to get to further this discussion about MI, crooked letter I, crooked letter I, humpback I. And this has been Basil BuddhaCat Presents, and again, thank you to Bill Murray in the audience. And his hammock is getting a lot of good use. He's been with us for about 6 months through the Basilathon, and good to have you, Bill. And we shall see you again Friday night. Good night. Good day.
They say they'd rob your grandma blind on Wall Street, fritter her away her Medicare on Wall Street, and Pharma Oil and their pet fox don't care if she lives in a box, so long as they wear platinum jocks on Wall Street, Meow.